Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Florida Writer Podcast, brought to you by the Florida Writers Association. I'm your host, Allison Nissen, and today I am lucky enough to have with me John Satterlee. John, why don't you give me your 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Basically, what I write is about various topics of Christian fiction. It depends on what's inspiring me at the time, and when I go with a good thought, I run with it.
All right, so you write Christian fiction, and do you have biblical stories, or are they just with Christian principles?
I base them on biblical stories and what the Bible says. After my current book, I do have a couple of stories based on stories in the Bible, based on the prodigal son and the story of Joseph that will be coming out.
All right, and these are full-length books that you have?
They're more like novelettes. It's kind of like, say, in between a short story and a full-page novel, because with the type of schedule I have with family, my day job, I don't have the time to write a 500-page novel.
Yeah, it is difficult to etch out that time. Where do you write? Do you have a special place in your house?
Normally at our computer in our house. I do my writing there when it's pretty much quiet and like say no distractions.
Now, those distractions are always around us, aren't they? Tell me about your current project.
My current book right now is called Eternal Love and Life. I want to go in this book with the type of characters who would not be typical Hollywood type characters, because I wanted to use people who are kind of quiet, reserved type people who don't want to bother anyone, who have slightest ability that people would make fun of. And in this case, they end up, after a long search, they run up running into each other and getting married, but then there was something else they had missing. And then one day, world events happened, and the rapture, which is mentioned a lot in Christian theology, they get left behind, and they end up in the worst period that the Bible says is coming, the 7-year tribulation, and then they end up surviving and also fulfilling their mission to spread the gospel and to help people till the return of Jesus Christ.
Do you do a lot of biblical research in order to try to represent the Bible accurately? Or are you able to, because it's fiction, go off on some tangents and do your own interpretations?
It's kind of a mixture. Of course, I do check what the Bible says on that, because I want to be accurate, because what I was doing was try and have like graphs and charts to not only shows what the Bible says, but I also want the reader to know what the characters would be going through at the same time. Because I based this on similar to, like, say, the book Left Behind, and of course I did take some information from the Thief in the Night movie series from the 70s and the 80s. But of course, I want people to know that the Bible is the supreme authority on this, not somebody's book or movie.
John, how did you get started writing?
Well, it's kind of hard to explain, because at first I wanted to do like just short stories, because due to my heavy time constraints. Because when I got the inspiration for this book, one thing pretty much led to another, and of course, and for me, I'm getting too old to do outside physical work, so I'm just wanting to write good type stories which people would like, and I feel good writing these type of books.
We should always feel rewarded in the hobbies we choose, right?
Yes, definitely. And of course, the second one, which I'm working on, which it's going through the process at the publisher's office, is a prodigal son story where a young farm boy who's tired of a one-horse town ends up in Vegas.
Oh, well, now that's an interesting place to be for the prodigal son.
He ends up doing well at first, but then he finds a woman who thought was the woman of his dreams, the most beautiful woman he's ever saw, but it turns out to be, she becomes his worst nightmare.
I'm sure many people can relate to that.
And of course, a lot of people go to places like Las Vegas, Atlantic City, or sometimes to the reservations or cruise ships. They think they have a plan, but it turns out to be a bust.
Absolutely. And they have to come home with hat in hand.
But eventually he turns herself around, and then, of course, the cruel lady turns herself around when she finds out that her alcoholism would cause her downfall, and she was begging God, please save my dog, but her dog was near death.
Nice little twist.
Hurricane preparations actually gave me some inspiration as far as the book I have for sale.
Really?
Because in End Times thing, it mentions how, quote, during the tribulation period, of course, not only some people can't buy or sell without the mark of the beast or the number of his name, but of course, with all the divine judgments that's going to be hitting during that time, a lot of stores are going to be in short supply anyway. I think the third seal judgment, the way it's been interpreted is a loaf of bread for a day's wages. I think a lot of people would not like that. So I kind of looked at that, especially because I know when you go into like Walmart or some of those other stores, bread, water, and things like that are some of the fastest things to go.
True, and I know they ration cases of water in some places.
Yeah, but of course, I had it to where my characters seen what the Bible says was coming, and they made sure they got prepared. Because I say because in some of the judgments in the second half of the tribulation, it does mention how springs and bodies of water will be either poisoned or turned into blood. So my characters made sure they had a good stockpile of water.
Well, we can't have life without water.
And of course, the main guy character, I had it to where he had to learn how to cut down his eating, because I had it to where he was like he could eat three platefuls of an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Oh.
But then he had to learn how to manage it more sensibly to make the food, make the water supply last for at least 7 years. But like say, because when I was trying to learn how to be a short story writer, one of the main people there says to make the reader care about your main character or characters.
Yes, they have to be. They can't be perfect, and they have to be realistic. They have to have flaws. We have to care about them. So we have to create characters that are identifiable.
Yeah, because my characters, like I say, they're not the typical Hollywood heroes. They have it in the story that they do make a few mistakes. In the case of my Penny character, she would be the type that would be like in high school, sitting alone on a bench and not really talking to people because she's afraid of people making fun of her. And I put it to where even her family thought she was an embarrassment to them.
Sounds like she has some interesting quirks to her.
I had it to where her sister blamed her for not winning the homecoming queen.
She has bullies to the left of her and bullies to the right.
Yeah, and then of course getting it from her own family at the same time. But I also put that at one time she wanted to kill herself, but some people in the school staff who had mental health training was able to get her the help she needed.
That's good. It sounds like she's an interesting character.
But then when she met her future husband Johnny, it probably took her a little while because finally finding a guy who loved, adored, and respected her.
When she probably didn't have much of that on her own.
That was pretty much because, like I say, that pretty much nailed it on the head right there.
And you're working with a publisher?
Yes, my publishing company is called Christian Faith Publishing, which is out of Meadville, Pennsylvania. They've been excellent in every step of the way. They do the editing, the page design, cover design, and besides printing the books, they also do press releases, which I'm not sure how many other companies do that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So what has your experience been working with them?
It's been very good. And like I say, whenever I've always had a question, they've always been very quick to respond, and they're also very friendly and also have a high degree of professionalism.
Professionalism in the writing world is a good thing. Some of these people can be a little unscrupulous, I think is the right word. Or we hear stories often. It's nice that you've been able to connect with a publisher that's helpful and allows you to, I guess, be respected.
And like the old saying, when two people deal with each other, when they say man or woman of their word, in their case, when they said they were going to do something, they did it.
That is really a good thing. When you were growing up, did you like writing as a child?
As a child, not so much, because I think When I was in middle school, I got a D in composition, and I never thought I had the talent. And if someone 5 years ago would have told me that I was going to be an author, I would not believe them. So basically, as a child, I was more into into sports. Because when I was in high school, I was wanting to get into the 1980 Olympics, but of course, the U.S. never got to go.
What was your sport?
In international competition, it would be 1,500 meters, 3,000 meters, and for us, it might be 1 or 2 miles. Back when I was a senior in high school, I did run a full 26-mile marathon.
Well, that's an accomplishment right there. So writing a novel is a lot like running a marathon, don't you think?
Pretty much, because you have to go with the inspiration when you have it, but then sometimes writer's blocks will sneak in there, and then sometimes when you're in the middle of writer's block, inspiration will come back.
That's true. It does. It ebbs and flows the way it wants to. I think we often call that our muse, and that she is either on it or she's hibernating. I think sometimes she likes to hibernate.
And one other note I want to put up about my publishing company is they lower the rate of publishing if you write a second or third or fourth book. Because one of my coworkers wants me to write a biography about his life story.
Well, that would start to be in the world of ghostwriting.
Yeah, because he originally came from Trinidad.
So, John, is there anything else about your writing that you would like to talk about?
Well, the only thing is I have a slightly unusual quirk is that what would be considered the main ending action, I usually do that for the second to last chapter. I always like to use the last chapter as kind of like a summary chapter.
So it's not an epilogue, but it's a summary, a recap.
Yes, definitely. The would be the last chapter.
Do you have a lot of action? Are your books kind of action adventure?
Kind of, yeah, because like I say, my first book starts off kind of slow. It deals with the lifestyle of my characters, Johnny and Penny, and then there's one chapter, I think it's chapter 8 in the middle. Then the story changes course, and then in the second half of the book is where most of the action is.
It sounds like an interesting story that you have, and so, John, how could people get in touch with you if they were interested in purchasing the book?
The book is currently on sale on Amazon.com. It's also on sale on BarnesandNoble.com, and also it's on sale on Books A Million, and it's also on sale on a few websites overseas too.
And what was the name again of the book?
The title of the book is called Eternal Love and Life.
Eternal Love and Life. All right. John, are you ready to switch gears and move into our rapid fire questions?
Yep.
Do you watch any television?
Very rarely.
Very rarely. What would you watch if you did?
Sports, mainly football, and sometimes anything to do with history or travel.
Do you have a favorite winter sport?
I would say hockey.
Hockey, it's a nice fast one. I like hockey as well. I've been able to go to a few games, and those are always fun to watch. And finally, what is your favorite smell for a candle?
If I have to use candles, no particular smell, as long as it lights and does what it's supposed to do.
There you go. Lights up the room. That's all we need. That's all we need. Well, John, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. I'm your host, Allison Nissen. Allison out. John Satterlee was born in Kodiak, Alaska, and is the author of Eternal Love and Life, published by Christian Faith Publishing. John lives and works in Orlando with his wife, Gloria, and their 2 sons, aged 17 and 9, who are both on the autism spectrum. For more information about John, visit him on his Facebook page at John Satterlee Author. For more information about the Florida Writers Association, visit us at floridawriters.net.